my name first is Tensei Tressa Adishnakashun. So hi, my name is Tressa. I am a Métis woman with the citizenship of Métis Nation, Ontario. I am connected to Treaty 3 lands, raised on the water, Lake the Woods, with my papa, fishing with our family. It was also the Métis women in my family that connected us a lot to our culture as Métis people. So I really resonate with your story and how you share it. So we're going to be doing a little mini sash, woven sash, or bracelet, however you want to finish off your sash today. It's up to you. You can use it as a bookmark. You can use it as a bracelet. It can be a part of a keychain even. There's kind of, sky's the limit. I have a few of these still kicking around from years ago when I made them, and they're just like in my memory keep box as well. So it's whatever you want to do. So you received a program kit from Anwa in the mail. It included some instructions, and then it also included 2 sets of, well, 4 different colors of strings. So with those 4 colors, it's actually enough yarn for 2 bracelets or 2 mini sashes. So I'll let you decide what colors you're wanting, the 2 colors that you're wanting to make your sash out of today. I'm going to be building mine through with the purple and white, but I'm going to show how to set up our finger weaving with my red and green. So you'll see on your handout as well that there's a glossary of terms or common terms that you may have heard or like you see when you are doing Métis sashes. So when we're finger weaving, it is the act of like, we're making a small version of a sash, but Métis families used to make these sashes in their homes with their families. So it's very much a whole community kind of involved in it. The sash represents, we see it oftentimes as the identity of the Métis people. There's a long-standing history with sashes as well, and so many different teachings that we can see from, that we can get from the sash. A couple that I have learned are that when we are weaving, as they kind of lured to that, like weaving stories and culture, you're kind of weaving parts of yourself and setting that intention while you are making your sash today as well. So kind of keeping that in mind while you're doing it. Art is a wonderful way to express yourself and to be creative. So while you're picking your colors right now, I'm sure there's many reasons why you're doing it. So essentially, another teaching that I've received as well from the sash is that when we weave all those small threads together, you'll notice that a sash becomes very strong. So a sash historically was meant to actually be tied around voyageurs' waists and be something to help in kind of a weightlifting. So during the fur trade, we would have seen during voyageurs lifting those huge fur packs that could weigh up to 90 pounds, for example. And they would use these to ensure that they didn't develop hernias. So that's kind of a practical use. Another practical use that I've been taught is that they could actually be used to help carry fur packs as well. So you could have your sash on your waist to help prevent those hernias, but then also using the sash around your forehead to help carry the fur pack on your back. So those are a couple historical ways that we've seen sashes be used. Today, we commonly see them more again as the identity of a Métis person. Women oftentimes will wear it across their body. Men may wear it across their waist, but that is really anybody can do it however they feel comfortable with and how they want to express their Métis identity. So a scarf as well. I mean, it's all kind of relative to whatever resonates with you. Okay, so we're going to get into our finger weaving here. So we have I have one kit kind of set up, but I am going to show how we get to this spot from here. So once you have your 2 strings, you're going to line them up together like this. Your long 2 strings. Okay, just like that. Then you're going to take the 2 ends and you're going to put them together like you're folding your long string. So I folded once. So I have a loop at the top. I folded once. Then I'm going to actually fold another time because we got lots of string here and we're going to be here all night weaving if we don't if we don't fold again. So I fold one more time and I still have a loop, the like kind of your big loop at the top. So that is, if you see here, where my loop started. So we're going to tie just a loose knot at the top here, bringing all your pieces through. So I have a loose knot like that. Just making sure I can see the focus. And I see Jordas put in the craft supplies. Yeah, so you're going to want your sticks. You're also going to want some tape and scissors as well handy too, because the next step here, once you have your little loop, that's where you're going to put in your first popsicle stick. Like this. So this, make sure it's not too tight because you're going to want to loosen it later when you're making a bracelet or tying off your sash. Okay, so again, I took the strings to the two colors, folded them twice, made the loop, tied a knot, and then I added my popsicle stick at the top. Okay. Any questions so far? So, if there's no questions, so now I have the weft, so the long vertical collection of my yarn strings. These popsicle sticks are kind of acting as our loom, our step-in loom for the day, because not everyone has a loom in their home. In today's day and age. If you do, cool, love that. But yeah, so our popsicle sticks are again kind of that loom. In a household, if you are making a sash with your family, you maybe have someone holding this up top to hold the tension as you are finger weaving. So up top here, so maybe someone's helping out with that. The little kidlets would be running around and helping make sure the bottom here wouldn't get tangled. So they'd be making sure that those strings were all loose and making sure they're staying in line there. And that's a fun activity. So if you have any kids at home too, you can be like, hey, keep my strings straight right here. So you'll notice I have my top loop and then I have the popsicle stick. So by now you have your two colors, you're ready to go. You'll see that we have a couple loops at the bottom here because when we folded our yarn, we ended up with a little loop at the bottom. So that's where we're going to use that scissors to just make all of our strings loose. Now, there are so many ways to finger weave. I will say that this is one of the many ways. I identify as a lifelong learner, so I know that there are so many other ways out there, and I don't think per se anyone is like right or wrong. It's just more or less what you've been taught and the teachings that you're carrying through. So I would love to hear more about the ways that you do it as well. But today I'm going to show you one way that I've been taught. So we have our two colors. Now we're going to do our first cross is what we call it. So this is where the tape's going to be coming in handy, because you'll notice as I'm pulling, this little popsicle stick is moving. So I'm going to grab, just to start off, 2 pieces of tape here to tape down my first popsicle stick, because you notice we have 3. Okay, so I've got this, feels pretty good. Now, once you have that tape down, I'll give you a second to do that and get a hold of your tape. You're going to split your 2 colors here. So the nice thing about kind of beginner finger weaving is that yarns come in so many beautiful colors. Historically, how many strings as the base? Good question. So it should be even. So if you folded your pieces of yarn like together, how long will the finger weaving be? Am I boring you already? No, so when we're doing our finger weaving, go ahead. Oh, the leg. Oh, I thought you meant the session, the activity. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I'll speed it up then. So the length, your sash, it really depends on the tension that you use. Okay, so if you are somebody who wants a really tight finger weave, you're going to make it's going to be tighter as you're going along. Then you'd have a longer mini sash or finger weaving. If you do a looser, it's going to be a bit shorter because we're not using as much of the yarn or the space that we have. We always used to joke that if your sash was super tight when you were doing it, that like it was indicative of how stressed out you were because you were like taking it out on the strings as you were, tightening it. But all right, so we have our two colors. Next, we're going to do our first cross. So the second popsicle stick is just splitting the two colors. Okay, so you have your top color and there's 4 strings. And then you have your bottom color, which there's also 4 strings. Now I'm going to tape this just underneath. I'm going to add it to my thing here. So this is just to help keep all of our strings kind of straight here. Okay. Okay, now we're going to do our first cross. So first cross is essentially just getting us set up. We always work from your left side. So this is my left. And to the right. Okay, so we always start at the top here. You're going to go 1 string down from the top, your top string. So mine is white. I'm going to put that down. Then I'm going to rotate and I'm going to do a bottom string, a purple. Move those over. Then again, I'm going to do a white, then a purple. Now, a big thing about finger weaving is keeping your string straight from the very top. So that's kind of what these popsicle sticks are helping us. So keeping them all in line and next to each other. So what I mean by that is when I was holding all my strings, I had them all straight and in line here. So none of them were crossing over one another. Okay. How you start is a kind of a way of how your sash goes and keeping the pattern going. So I'm going to start again. So I got the white, the purple, the white, my next purple, the white, keeping my strings nice and straight and lined up here, and then purple, okay, and then a white. So this is our setting up our first cross, okay. I'll let everyone have a second there to kind of get that straightened out. As I mentioned before, we're always moving from the left. So when we're doing that, I'm going to be essentially when we're weaving, we're bringing the top color up and the top down. So it's like we're just rotating that happening over and over again. And that's what gives us our pattern. Now, what we need though is the term we call a warp, and that's kind of locking in the last weave that we just made. So we're going to finish our first cross, which means all we've done is we've crossed the strings. So the top strings are now going to go to the bottom. The purple for mine are coming up. So I'm going to gather my first bottom purple string from the left, and I'm going to just keep gathering my purples like this. Okay. And you'll see it's starting to kind of cross through there. Okay. So this is technically our first cross. Now, if you wanted to, you could put your third popsicle stick here, but you don't have to. If you want to, that's great. You can kind of like lock in your first cross, or you can just kind of tape down here and know that it's staying in place. I'm going to add a little bit more tape because I'm kind of losing this one here. Okay. There we go. So now we have our first cross is done. Now we're going to do that warp. So that's the horizontal line. Okay. So again, I'm moving from my left-hand side. You'll notice that this one left string, I've kind of left it off on its own, okay? It's going to bring everything together. So you're going to pick up your top colors like this, making the space that's in between the top and bottom layers of the yarn. This is actually called the shed. So it's like you can put some stuff away in there, okay? So that's the shed underneath. You're going to take this left bottom string, which is mine's white over here. Yours might be a different color. And you're going to actually cross it underneath your purple, kind of like you're going into the shed. And you're going to actually put it off to the side over here. So off to the side. So I've grabbed it from here. I went through splitting my two colors. Okay. Now, just like before, we are rotating the two colors. So starting from the left side, now I have my top strings again. I am putting them down. Purple top, white bottom, my top purple, white bottom, purple. There you go. Okay, so we're back to the same. So just like we did with the first cross, we're bringing your bottom color up now. Okay, so my bottom color is white, which is always the same color as the warp or the string that you put through the shed. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and collect my white strings one at a time, 2, 3, and even the warp here. And now I have, you'll see my bottom colors have come up. Now, all my purples are on the bottom. This is where the tightness kind of matters. So if you want a really tight finger woven sash, you will really push in here and kind of create that pattern that we're seeing. The tighter you pull the last string is also how tight your little purple, or my purple, for example, will be. So there you go. So now we got our first weave. We're rocking, we're rolling. All right. Now, fun thing about finger weaving and it as an activity is that it's very repetitive. Once you've picked a pattern that you're doing, it's kind of the same thing over and over again. So it's a really great activity, kind of for, I don't know, we have a cup of tea over here, you know, just sitting, having a sip, working away. So same thing. Now, we're starting with the warp. So that horizontal string that comes across to split the two colors in the shed. Now that my purple are on the bottom, that is where that far left string, the far left purple, comes through and splits my two colors like that. Okay, so I got my first step done. You can kind of tug at it a little bit to make it a little tighter if you'd like, and just throw her off to the side. Okay. Then we're doing the same thing. So always starting from the left and the top, I'm putting down my one. After my white, I need a purple from the bottom, keeping the line nice and straight from the top, making sure I'm not crossing over any of my purples or my whites here. So purple, white, purple, white. There you go. Okay. So same as before, since my purple is now on the bottom, or whatever color I have on the bottom, it needs to come up. Okay. So I'm going to grab my first bottom color, whatever that one might be for you. That is from the left. I'm going to pick up my purple. So second string in, if that's easier to kind of think about. So it was the second string that I've placed in here. Up, up. And I'm gathering even the one that was the warp that went through the shed there. Okay, now this is again that tightening component. So depending on how tight you want it, holding those strings with a little bit of even tension, pulling on that last warp string or the one that went through the two colors can kind of help bring your yarn together. And here we are. Okay, so you can kind of see my pattern is starting with my two colors. Okay, so same thing again, which is so fun because it's like we're gonna have your whole sash is like a practice today. So same thing. So we have the far left bottom string. Mine is white. It is coming through between splitting up the two colors. I'm going to put it off to the side. Then I'm going to start placing from the top left color. It starts the altering two colors. So purple, white, purple, white. I just know for a fact there's some textile people out there that are already like going for it. Just they have a full thing going, which is awesome. Okay. So I have my full, they're all down here, keeping them nice and straight at the bottom. And I'm going to pick up my bottom color, which for me this time it's white. So you notice we're just rotating between those two. So white, purple for me. And I'm tightening. And you could pull on that last string there, the warp string that went through. And you'll notice I like to kind of, when I start my new line, I like to actually separate my two colors a little bit, just so that I can take a moment to look at where the strings are coming from, making sure that they're all in line from the very top. Okay, so same thing here. Far left, bottom string goes through to split the two colors, and we are starting to rotate from the top left color. So white, purple, white, purple, white. Okay, so because my purple's at the bottom, that's what needs to come up. So I'm grabbing first from the second string in here, my purple comes up and it's going to gather with its friends here, all the purples. And then this is just the tightening. So you can kind of see our little ceinture fléchée is actually starting to form from the very top. Now, we're doing kind of the, oh, I forget the name of the, like this pattern specifically, but there's so many other patterns that you can do. And really all the difference is how many different colors of yarn you might have, how many strings you might have. So if we look at here, like this is a whole lot. Today when I accepted the opportunity to come in and share this with you, I was like, I have no yarn at home. So I literally picked up this stash and just kind of started to finger weave a couple spots on my own, just so that I can like kind of refresh my memory too. And it's funny how once you do something like this and you kind of do the repetitive nature of it, that it's kind of muscle memory, or even maybe blood memory, you know, from our ancestors being like, oh, I'm so happy that you're doing some of our culture, you know, so something to keep in mind too, that, you know, the ancestors before you may have been somebody who finger wove as well. So, okay, so we have our top purple, our bottom white. I'm going to grab the far left bottom string and I'm going to go split the two. Put that over to the side, and then it's rotating again between purple, top color, bottom color string, top color, from working from the left always, bottom, top. There we go. Okay. Now, because my white strings are on the bottom, those need to come up, as I said before. So I hope you're kind of getting the hang of it a little bit over there. Okay. Now I'm going to do this a couple more times and I'll just kind of like narrate what I'm doing. And then for those that are interested in kind of like a different way to hold it, like maybe you're feeling like, oh, I feel like I have this kind of rotating figured out, but like alternating between the two strings, I can show you how you might be able to hold it too in your hands instead of needing to place every string down as well. So I'll do this though, if you get a few more lines going here, and you can kind of follow along with me. This would be a great time if you have any questions as well. So if any of your strings have crossed at the top, that is totally normal and all a part of learning like how to finger weave. So it's okay, you know, if those cross over, because then what ends up happening is you might have like a different pattern along the way. And, you know, those imperfections are never a bad thing, right? So it's kind of, it's your own. The two different colors kind of do, you know, make it a little easier to be able to try to figure out where that may have happened. But if you, let's say, have crossed something over up top and you're like, oh no, like you can always undo your last row that you just made as well. So something to keep in mind. Okay, so I'm going to do another one here. We're going, I won't hold it that way yet. So going through far left bottom color, comes through the two, splits the two colors. And then I'm rotating from the top left, bottom left, top. See, I almost grabbed for the bottom there. Happens. Okay. Then I'm picking up my bottom ones. Now, this is like a great activity for kids too. A lot of the community workshops that I used to do, it was with school age kids and things like that. It's a really nice, easy setup craft that, let's say you're a teacher too, and you want to bring something like this into your classroom, such an like a low cost way to bring in some Métis culture into your classroom. And there's a lot of resources on the Métis Nation of Ontario website as well that kind of go over, different kind of class sets and educator sets as well. So check those out if you're interested in learning more about the sash and kind of how you could incorporate that into your own work or into classrooms as well. Okay, so same thing. I'm going to do one more here, and then I'm going to kind of show a different way of holding their yarn. Okay, so top left, bottom left. I wonder if my friend Lucy's watching right now, who helped sign me up for this opportunity today. She's probably, you know, I think she's at an event too. So she's probably like, oh, this is great. Bringing back our Métis youth days. Okay, so my bottom strings are coming up. Okay, so I'm going to tighten this one a little bit. Now, you can keep going that way. If that's what you're comfortable with, you'll see like as I pull tension, it kind of tightens up my little ceinture fléché. But I mean, if you kind of went really tight throughout, like you're a little stressed today, that's cool. Like yours is gonna be nice and tight, okay? If you are kind of keeping it a little bit more loose, you might notice that your mini sash is a little longer than this one, for example. And again, that's all related just to the tension that you're kind of using as you go along. You see these sashes, this one would be like more industrially made, so it's very tightly woven. But you could do like a finger woven sash as well. You'd just be like really pulling wood to get that done. But I mean, it would be a really cool activity to do as a family together now, wouldn't it? Okay, so this next little way to hold these strings is, I would say, kind of like the next step. And if you're wanting to get a little faster at doing the sash. So if you're comfortable continuing with kind of the alternating strings on the table, have at her, totally fair. If you're wanting to move on to kind of a different way of doing it, I hold both kind of in one hand here. And I'm gonna have to get the feel of it. I reach through on my right hand for that warp string. So that bottom far left string, I'm holding all the string in my left hand though. I'm gonna reach through, and that same warp string still just gets kind of tossed over to the side for now, okay? So now that I've done that, I'm going to pull, we always start with that top string anyways, so the top left color. So I've moved my strings over to my right hand. Everybody's dominant hand is different, so it's okay if you're going the other way. But we're gonna go top left string, I'm going to file it between my index finger and my middle finger. Okay, now this string needs to come up. So I'm just rotating between the strings here. Now let me get a little feel for it. So it's actually my, okay, so it's actually my ring finger and my middle finger that are taking the top color. And then my bottom colors are ending up with my index. So I'm filing, rotating. So I went purple, white up top, and then purple. And you'll see I'm gathering them here, little pinky up. And then I grab my white all together with these two, and then my purple, and then my white, and then my purple, okay? And then I like to kind of comb out what I just did bottom, and then that warp string needs to join back up again. And then this finger kind of is your tightening. Okay, so that's another way to kind of do it. So I will do that again. So I'm pulling through my warp string across through the shed, splitting up these two colors here. So it's in between. And then I bring them over into my right hand, put that string to the side. Between my ring finger and my middle finger, I'm starting my top left string, bringing it down, bringing up the bottom, and I'm just rotating the exact same way that we were doing on the table, but now it's just happening in my hand. Does that look okay? That makes sense, yeah. Okay, here I am, warp string together, and then comb out. Because that's really where your tangles start to happen now, when you're kind of doing your row just in your hands and they're not split apart across your table. So I'll do that again for anyone who wants to do that way. And then I will go back again and kind of demo that first way too again. So warp string through, top left string, down to those fingers, up with my bottom, filing. You can kind of see like the dexterity kind of start to happen. And once you kind of figure out your rhythm and go with it, you'll be smooth sailing and able to do this pretty fast once you kind of do it over and over again, that same repetition, like any kind of craft. Okay. All right, so back to, Monique says, thank you, Tressa, I had to start over, but now I'm getting the groove of it. Yeah, starting over, that's a big one. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll just keep with the rhythm of it, because it really, like, the colors again help so much with like splitting them up and knowing where, if they're going down or if they're coming up. If you were doing a variety of colors, it really comes down to like where you're filing those strings, right? And keeping them all together is what would keep you from getting kind of, kind of mixed up in them. But that's why these kits by Anwa are so wonderful, because they are providing kind of those just two direct colors to be able to see the difference and maybe also correct, like you said, kind of start over if you need to. So, okay, so we're going to start with the OG, the original way. So far left bottom string comes over, goes through the two strings to split them up. Give it a little tug on there. And then I am putting down top left color down. Then I'm going bottom color. And I'm alternating my two colors. So this is something that I actually learned while working with the Métis Nation of Ontario as a youth cultural interpreter during my undergrad. So I didn't learn this actually from my family. I learned a lot of wonderful things from my family, especially my papa on Treaty 3 lands. He's now since passed, but he taught us so many wonderful things about fishing and harvesting off the land. So I just, I'm very appreciative of that. But then I also acknowledge that the matriarchs in my family have you know, really made an effort to get us kids kind of connected to our culture if we choose to as well. So it was never kind of like, you have to do all these things. It was something that if you had an interest in it, the resources were there and the opportunities were there for you to do it. And I just really appreciated that. So my mom and my aunties, and they really just kind of, yeah, made that available to us. I'm still rotating here between these two while I'm talking. You might have noticed I almost mixed up one of them while I'm talking too. That might happen. How's everyone's looking after this or looking so far? Would anyone like to share what colors? Oh, Sarah went all wonky. Yeah, that might happen. Oh, my little twist along the road. How's everyone else doing out there? Any kind of little mix-ups that you don't know how to solve that I can help with? Oh, turquoise and white. I love that. Yeah, I guess everyone probably had different colors. I'd be curious to hear what colors you chose to go with for your mini sash. Sarah B did turquoise and white.
So I was told that much like Scottish tartans, the colors in the Métis sash often told the sort of family story and the family lines.
The green and red. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for Christmas yet. So I went for the purple and white, but I know a lot of people love Christmas right away after Halloween. So Sally did pink and dark blue. Ooh, that'd be pretty. Tiffany, we got black and yellow. So Sarah, yes, how do we get back to the previous weave when it does get wonky? Ooh, good question. Okay, so if I needed to undo what I've done, essentially I'm doing the reverse. So as you can see here, my purple was coming up from the bottom, and now my whites are down here. So I would have to essentially take my top color and bring it back down. So I'm essentially just kind of going back. So I'm pulling up my whites and bringing my purples back down. And then I'm unwarping kind of what I just did. So if you have to go back a couple times to do that, that's okay. So I'll do another one. So again, so you'll see here, I have my whites on the top, purples on the bottom. I'm going to bring my whites down through the little alleyways that they went through in the first place. So the biggest part is kind of keeping them on the same track, which can be a little tricky, I know. But that's how essentially you would just go back. So now my white's on the bottom, my purple's on the top, and I unwarp that string back over. And Penny did red and white. Oh, that's nice. I hope that answered your question, Sarah. Did that kind of solve it for you? Your fingers are probably busy now versus typing, but so if you are making a bracelet, now that's going to be dependent on how big your wrist is, right? So if you're kind of looking at it from the top here, I'd like to say that you kind of want to have as much of your bracelet weaved as possible, right? So I would say I'm kind of not quite there, because I want my weave to be all the way around, and then I'll finish off the end of it. So I'm going to demo how I did it for the kind of the next step hand here too. Does anybody have a preference for how they're building their sash? Is it the bod this way, holding? Or do they like the table kind of method and laying everything out? There, got it now. Perfect. What we like to hear. Alternating. And you'll see here, like, I kind of got like a little loop happening, and that's just because my warp string got a little loose while I was rotating this. So just kind of pulling it tight at the end before it joins the top colors is kind of how you just set it all in line again. Sarah, table for now. Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, like this next way of holding it, like you got to kind of have that a little bit more practice doing it for sure. So Tracy did blue, green, yellow, and gray. Awesome. Did you do all 4 of them? Like, woof, that'd be fun. Kathy had black and white. Sally got the beginning. I will just have to practice. Yes. Yeah. It's kind of once you get kind of the groove of it and you just keep going, that's where that muscle memory comes from again. And Tiffany says it's much easier. The holding is much easier. That's good to know, because like it's kind of, I guess once you kind of have it figured out, and I like holding it as well, but it is nice to see how everything kind of progresses from that beginning stage there too. So I'll do one more of it holding like this. If anyone has any questions while we're doing kind of these 2 different ways, and I'll just kind of rotate between the 2 so that you still can see how I'm doing it. People are trying. I mean, that's fair. We can only try our best here.
We would love it if you would share the pictures of your woven bracelets, or, you know, if you are so desiring to make a sash or a keychain or whatever it is, we would love to see your finished products or even your processed products. Like I said, I had to start over mine, but I get it now and get in the groove. So yeah, it's starting to make a little more sense. And I'm not sure who was doing the 4 colors, but
Oh, I would
wow.
say I have. Let's see. Kind of a funky way to try it out. You could go all the way to the end if you wanted to. If you're thinking of maybe like a lanyard or something like that. Like, again, there's so many different ways, like, and Jordas here too wrote the pictures. They'd love to see the pictures of your woven bracelets. I love the bracelet idea. I think that's super cute to make. And then you have one more too, because you have enough yarn for both. So you're like, oh, my bestie needs a friendship bracelet now. I would say the tape is pretty essential in being able to kind of pull on it to set it up without the tape. I mean, you could also set it up on, like, knot it to something like a hard surface, like a cupboard door, if like it doesn't move, I don't know, like a handle of something if you really wanted to, instead of using the tape. But when I used to make little, I'm thinking now back when I was a little girl, I used to make friendship bracelets at camp. And I always used to tie them to the top cupboard so that I could like also lay down and do it, like such a, I don't know, so many different ways depending on how you if you find this to be like a relaxing activity too. Another teaching that I actually was just thinking about too, that I received with the sash, is that most sashes have those loose ends like this. And as we know, and kind of as Monique was mentioning earlier about Louis Riel, Métis people are very resilient and also very resourceful. So the loose strings here, there were a couple different ways that those could be used. So let's say you needed to stitch up something really quick, you could pull off a little piece. Some people even said that you could even like braid in here and hide a or like keep one of your stitching needles as well, as long as it didn't poke you, kind of thing, but you could braid it in so that it's readily available if you need it. So it's like a sewing kit en route to your next fur trading post, essentially. I'm doing the hand method here still. Yeah, this would be a great time to. Yeah, Monique says, does anyone have a question for Elder Pearl? Brenda, I'm excited to try finger weaving with my daughter once we can set up her craft table. I love that. Yes. Such a fun activity. And so many different colors, right? Like historically too, the yarn color would be kind of dependent on what you could dye the yarn with. So the different colors could be before too, the patterns in the sash could have been a distinct kind of family's way to weave their sash as well. Or depending on like the blue kind of thing, if you wanted to dye your yarn with kind of like blueberries and stain them in that way. Sarah, could we see another close-up on the hand method in a bit? Oh yes, IT's on it. I'll start from scratch here. So I start in my left hand. I'm gonna reach through, grab my far left string and make that through the shed there. So that's my warp string. It's gonna go down to the side. And then I trade into my right hand. Okay. Now from here, I am going to be collecting the strings in my left hand, starting with that top left string. Where you file your strings is really up to you. It depends on how you, like what feels most comfortable, I guess, is how I would think it. I like to, again, go between my ring and index, my ring and middle finger is my top strings coming down. So I'm grabbing down. And then I'm pulling up with my thumb and my index pointer's finger. So then I'm always going back to my middle and the same spots. So it's like they're joining their friends, rotating. Yeah. And then the last string, we still got to bring him back to his friends up top, and that's going to be with the white top strings. So I'll do that again. So first, far left string is that warp string. It needs to come through to split it up, put it to the side, trade hands, And then start filing from the top left, bringing those down. And then your bottom one's coming up. Getting all sorts of angles here, I love it. As long as you're filing them together and those bottom colors are coming up and the tops are going down. Okay, again, one more time here. I appreciate the questions. If anyone else has any questions that they're kind of getting stuck on, please let me know. Well, I'm feeling like I got a pretty good bracelet going. I don't know about how's everyone else doing out there. Are we ready to tie off our bracelet? Do we need a little bit more time? I'm almost getting twisted under here. See, there you go. Go straighten it out. I'll do one more here. He's ready. Sure thing. Okay, love it. I'm probably going to need an extra hand. This is where friends come in handy. Okay, so I have finished my last weave. So whatever you're finished at, that's great. We have to tie off our bottom string. So we're starting from the left again. And all we're going to be doing is tying, well, let's do 4 and 4 so that we can kind of tie into our loop. So all I'm going to be doing is just a tight knot. Okay. Similar to how you would start any old knot. And I'm just going to tighten it into my work. So that's all I've done. This. See, I have all my little loose ends. Then I'm going to do the same thing to my other 4, making sure that last warp string, try to keep it to the outside, just because that's again what keeps our the tightness going. So I'm going to put it with that one, and I'm going to give it tighten it. So we have two knots, kind of finishing our work. You can double a knot if you'd like, just like you're like, oh my goodness, I don't want to lose the work I've done. That's okay too. Do it. If you wanted to leave it as is, that's really great too. If you wanted to do a little bit more like decorating with the ends here, you could continue to, like, for example, braid these last strands too, to tie off to your bracelet. It's really up to you. So now what I'm going to do is, so now that my work is secured at the base here, I'm going to undo my popsicle sticks. Okay. Now this the popsicle stick that we had in second, the first one's should be pretty loose, like to be able to come out like that. This one was when we did it was when we did our first cross. So that was when before we started the whole warping of the strings between the shed, as they call it. It was kind of what we did to start alternating our strings and having our top color versus our bottom color. So you can pull that right out and your sash is going to be starting at the top. The tighter you start, Julie McLeod has a teaching here. So I've heard that the ends were used by the voyageurs and their wives to time the length of a trip. Well, that's fun. That's a really cool teaching. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so now I have my kind of a loop at the top here and my bottom strings. So you can tie that directly to your wrist. I might need, actually, would you like to help me? Would you like to wear it? I made it for you, my new friend. Do you love purple? Okay, so what did I go under here? So essentially all I'm going to be doing is pulling that through, depending on the size of someone's wrist too, I guess we got to consider. So measuring out your work as you're going probably helps. I'm going to wrap it around once, just so you're not like losing it later. It's kind of there. And there's so many ways that you can tie it off. So if, for example, if I wanted to do this like shorter, I could have had my braided sections here ending, and that's what I'm tying to the loop, for example, too. You could also even, if you wanted to, untie this loop here and make two other kind of ends like this and tie it off. There's honestly so many different ways to do it. It's more or less just whatever suits you. So if you're making this bracelet for somebody and they have a cute little wrist, you might need to fix it up a little bit, but here we go. And then you can kind of cut off the loose ends here too. Look, you gotta model it. Ooh. So many ways to kind of end the bottom parts.